How's it going, all you Minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for my overview of the Rorschach hardcover from DC Comics. So please stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. So here we are. I broke an oath. And that oath was never to read any of the expanded Watchmen universe or watch any of the movies and or TV shows. And I'm broken it all because I have watched the movie, the Zack Snyder movie, and I watched the TV show. So while I show the sides of the books, I'm going to explain myself. So to me, Watchmen was such a special experience that it had a beginning and it had a definitive ending. It didn't need to be expanded on. And I'm not heartbroken or have gone nuts like some people think Alan Moore have gone with his material that he doesn't even want to be involved in anymore, to the point where he's taken his name out of the things that he has helped create or co-create. But it's just one of those things that it was done. It was one and done. That's all I needed. It was the perfect book. It's one of the books that I've read over and over again. But I did watch the movie, and then I read some of the before Watchmen just because Dave Gibbons was involved, and there were a couple of other creators that I respected, and I still do. And then I watched the TV show, and I'll be honest, the TV show grew on me. And at first I didn't think it had anything to do with Watchmen up until a certain episode. Then I was thinking, oh, okay, that makes sense. So, Rorschach, Tom King, Jorge Fornes, and Dave Stewart. Let's look at this under the dust jacket. So here we have, I'm sorry, I forgot to talk about this because I was talking about my oath that I broke. A thumbprint with the image of Rorschach. It is a DC Black Label line. And before I go any further, it is a standard size hardcover. And what that means is the dimensions of this standard size hardcover are the dimensions of a trade paperback. It's not as tall as an omnibus or deluxe edition. It just has the trim size of a trade paperback or single issue comic. Now let's look at this underneath the dust jacket. So we do have a Rorschach ink blot here. Tom King, Jorge Fornes, Dave Stewart on the spine. The title of the book, Rorschach, and the DC logo at the bottom. This is going to be a pretty tricky overview to do. So, if you're not familiar with the world of Watchmen, if you don't know what happened, because I have to talk about what happened at the end of Watchmen, put me on mute. Look at the pretty pictures. Enjoy that. I'm not going to go into spoilers about this. I'm just going to talk about the premise and how it all starts off in issue number 1, and that's about the only thing I'm going to spoil. But if you don't know what happened in Watchmen, or you're not familiar with that wonderful comic series by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, then, like I said, put me on mute, because I would hate to spoil it for anybody that has not experienced it. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this open, talk about the premise, and show off the art. Alright, so let's get this open. Again, I'm just going to be talking mainly about the first issue that sets up the whole mystery and what this is about. Because going into this, I had no idea what this was even going to be about, whether it was a follow-up to the original Watchmen set in that universe, whether it was set in the universe of the Doomsday Clock or the TV show. And after reading this, I have a better understanding of where this takes place. So here are your credits on the left-hand side. Tom King, Jorge Fornes doing the artwork, Dave Stewart doing the colors, and Clayton Cowles, who's doing the letters. The covers are all done without the numbering or the lettering, and they're all done in between the chapters. So, it all kicks off with this image right here of this person, could be Rorschach, we'll talk about that here in a little bit, getting shot and his face blasted. Right on top of what looks to be some kind of presidential speech or something. Something's going on down here, and we're about to find out. And I'll talk a little bit about all of that and the importance of that here in a second. Then we meet the main investigator that is going to be trying to figure out exactly what all this is. So, it's been 35 years, because this book came out in 2020, and DC decided to do a Black Label series set outside of the DC continuity, although some are set in DC continuity. I know it's a little bit of a mess. But this particular series here is taking place in the Watchmen and TV show universe. I don't think it takes place in the Doomsday Clock universe, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Again, this is really difficult to do without talking about spoilers. The reason I say it takes place in the TV show universe is because at one point, right here actually, when they're talking about the costume, they mentioned the Oklahoma massacre. And that's where most of the Watchmen TV show took place. So, going into this, I had no idea what it was going to be about. And I know after Doomsday Clock, we were introduced to a new Rorschach. So this is the part where I have to talk about Watchmen, because it's important to talk about it before talking about this book. So, at the end of Watchmen, we know that Rorschach is killed by Dr. Manhattan. He's killed and turned into an ink blot on the ground. It's a beautiful image. It's just really disturbing. And that was Walter. Walter was our Rorschach from the Minutemen. And he was the one that was... everything is black and white. Loosely based on the character created by Steve Ditko. What was his name? Mr. A, I believe. But in Doomsday Clock, we got a new Rorschach. And I'm not going to go into spoilers as to who that is. And whether that Rorschach turns out to be the Rorschach in this, I will let you find out. Even though I just said this doesn't really fit into the whole Doomsday Clock continuity. And you'll see what I mean when you read it. So it all kicks off with an assassination attempt on Governor Turley, who is somebody that is a presidential candidate. And yes, it starts off with these two dead bodies. You have somebody dressed like Rorschach, and you have this young lady here. There's an autopsy done, and it looks like the guy dressed as Rorschach was in his 80s, an older gentleman, and the young lady was 23, I believe. There's thumbprints there that point back to the original Rorschach. So we have Walter. So, no body, no death, right? Like, we go back to that theory in comic books that if there's no body, there's no death. So what exactly does that mean? So that's the main investigation. Who are these two dead people? Why were they trying to assassinate the presidential candidate? And were they trying to assassinate or trying to help him? That's what this 12 issues is. And I will say this about it, and that's all I will say about the main plot, that this feels more like what I wanted to read out of his Batman run. Because you see, Tom King had written some things that were just beloved by a lot of people, whether it was Vision or Mr. Miracle or Omega Man. You know, he was just used to writing these almost like pocket universe stories that were about 12 issues long. And then he took over Batman, and then he did Heroes in Crisis, and a lot of people lost faith in him. Heroes in Crisis was rough. And from the start, I wasn't the biggest fan of his Batman run. But I always appreciated his maxi series, like Vision, even though really, I have to say that it's taken out of continuity to enjoy it. And the same thing I've heard about Mr. Miracle, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Mr. Miracle to begin with. I was more familiar with the character of Vision. Omega Man could be taken in continuity just because of the way Kyle is. But anyway, back to this. This felt like a detective story. As a matter of fact, this is drawn that way. This is Jorge Fornes. They both worked on Batman. So both of them have worked previously before together. And his art really, it's not like he's trying to mimic the art style of Dave Gibbons. He's got his own art style, and it almost feels a little bit timeless. Because you see, in the world of Watchmen, there are certain historical changes that happened. So it's not like our world. It's different. There are wars, and like I said, for those that haven't read it, I'll just be very vague about this. There are wars that were won. There's a new president, President Robert Redford, instead of Ronald Reagan, and he remains president for a long time. And as a matter of fact, he's still president in the Watchmen TV show. So, how does this happen? What is going on through here? And you're thrown into the middle of this mystery. And I did not know how long it was going to go, especially after you read, for anybody that's read this, issues 6 and 7. He pretty much just lays it all out there. And even though issue 7, I was like, what? But that's, and for anybody that's read issue 7, you know what I'm talking about. It's a very meta thing to do, but whatever. Let's keep rolling with it. I didn't know how much longer they could do it. I mean, the mystery was solved, but he added 4 more issues in there, 4 to 5 more issues to get us to issue 12. And even at the end of issue 12, I was still left with some questions, because it is very vague. So don't expect, like, here's your answers, even though I thought that was what happened, and this is how it all happened. Now, you are given a bunch of clues there as to, you know, the mystery of who the two characters are and whether they had anything to do with the original Rorschach or not. So you will be asking yourself a lot of things. Is this, what exactly is happening here? Is this Walter coming back to life? Is this the character from Doomsday Clock? Is this time travel? Is this like a reincarnation of these characters? Or is it all just a copycat crime to put the blame on something that is come and gone? Because at the ending of Watchmen, you know, the world has lost faith in superheroes. Because of the whole squid incident. Because we know the squids weren't real, even though Ozymandias made it out to be a real alien attack. And a lot of that is brought in here. So I can't imagine reading this without having read Watchmen, honestly. I think this lies heavily on the fact that you have read Watchmen and know it front to back. Now, there is Pontius Pilate. I love that name. The take-on name of Pontius Pilate. So in this world, instead of there being superhero comics, there are pirate comics. So you are going to see some comics in here. You're not going to see the prose stuff in between chapters. That's really, that's pretty much a Watchmen thing. But in here, you are going to be seeing a couple of pages of comics. And of course, just like the pirate comics in Watchmen, they do play an important part in the overall story. So this by far is the hardest overview I've had to do, because I would hate to spoil this for anybody that hasn't read Watchmen or anybody that hasn't read this yet. And that is as vague as I can be. If you're wondering if the original characters are back in this, if the Minutemen come back in this, well, you can find out for yourself. My job here is just to do an overview of the book, and I think I talked enough about the story to kind of give you what the premise is and what the mystery is. Now, when looking at a Tom King book, one expects these type of panel layouts, the 9-panel grids. And I wanted to talk about this particular art here, Fornes' artwork, before we looked at the extras, because I think, to me, Fornes' art is the best part of the book. And even though it's still the best part of the book, I think some of his stuff in the Batman comic was done a little bit better. I do like the different tones of the colors, though, that they use for the flashbacks and the modern, the now part of the story, if you will. Big fan of the way that the splash pages are done. This particular issue is done in a series of letters. So it's a letter from one character to the other. I really like that. And then we have some more 9-panel grids. The story is easy to follow because of his art. His art is, I don't want to say simple, because like I said, it definitely has a timeless feel to it. Like the idea that they're still using tape recorders in this, and beepers and payphones, all give it this timeless feel to it. Almost think of like Batman the Animated Series. I had friends of mine that used to watch Batman the Animated Series and were so confused as to when exactly it takes place. Now we said, oh, it's set in its own universe. And that's the way this feels, because that's the way Watchmen was. All right, now let's take a look at the extras in the back, because we do have a bunch of extras. So you saw the main covers. They were full splash pages. The other covers, the variant covers rather, are all done in this thumbnail style. The book has 312 pages, and it retails for $34.99. Here's some designs. I skipped a couple of the designs because even though they're not spoilers, you have to find out who these characters are. And some more of the variants and thumbnail. And this is the design cover concept sketches here from Jorge Fornes. And he did quite a lot. Now, as far as the build of the book, so the book is printed on glossy paper, which is pretty interesting because most of the time when I've seen these standard size hardcovers from DC, it's printed on matte paper. And the binding is this glued binding. So maybe what I'll do, since I do want to talk about this book, is do a review of it, maybe sometime in a month or so, and then we can all chime in on what we all thought, give you all time to read it in case you were waiting on the collected edition. But until then, that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsors. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely in an excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out the bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they are now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. CGN is currently running a special promotion for your Minties. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is valid for U.S. customers only. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this hardcover. Let me know in the comments down below if you have picked it up, if you plan on picking it up. If you were like me and decided, I'm done, Watchmen is it, and there's nothing else that needs to be read or watched after reading this masterpiece. It's one of those books that I have read over and over again, and I didn't think it needed to be expanded on. But here we are. Let me know what you thought of this without going into spoilers, because I want to give everybody a chance to read it. Perhaps sometime in the next coming month we can discuss this in detail, just because I really want to, because I had issues with it and there were aspects of it that I really enjoyed. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to smash that like button, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and on Patreon, and thank you so much to our existing patrons. Could not be making videos like this without you all. And more importantly, all of you, stay healthy and stay safe. Much love.